Welcome to Travel Italia, the show about travel in Italy. Hey friends, welcome back to the show. Today I have for you 10 do's and don'ts for dining in Italy. In the last episode, I explained how tipping works, and in this episode, I want to share some very important do's and don'ts that will help you navigate restaurants while dining in Italy. I happen to be someone who loves to eat. Some people refer to people like me as foodies, but I really don't like that term. I prefer to self-identify as a food lover. So when I'm traveling, it's essential that I eat well. You would think that one would eat well everywhere in Italy, but sadly, that's not exactly the case. That's why I created this list for you, my dear listeners, because I want you to eat well while you're in Italy. There's absolutely nothing worse than being extremely disappointed with a meal that you've paid for. So let's get started. Number 1. Don't go to restaurants that are in the heart of very busy tourist areas or near famous landmarks or sites. I'll give you an example. Let's take, for example, the city of Verona. The main piazza is absolutely stunning. In the piazza, there's a historic 2,000-year-old Roman arena. And the piazza is lined with beautiful historic restaurants and cafes which face the arena and the piazza. There's outdoor seating so you can enjoy the scene. The piazza is gorgeous. And if you're sitting at one of these restaurants, you have this amazing view. But there's a problem with these kinds of places. You may be thinking, well, what's the problem? It sounds beautiful. It sounds ideal. Well, there are a few problems. First off, these places are usually more expensive. That's one. Secondly, they usually have a lower quality of food and generally offer a menu which only caters to the likes and dislikes of tourists. What do I mean by that? Well, let me explain. These restaurants have menus that offer typical classic Italian dishes like lasagna, pasta alla bolognese, pesto pasta, pizza, etc. Very recognizable dishes. You might be thinking, well, what's wrong with that? That sounds wonderful. Well, there's nothing inherently wrong with those dishes. It's just that it's not a reflection of the local cuisine. It is kind of like the top 10 hits of Italy, right? That everybody knows, but that's not exactly what's eaten by the locals. So the menu's been crafted to appeal to tourists, and the main goal is not to showcase the local dishes using local products. For example, the signature dish of the city of Verona is a lovely Amarone risotto. Amarone is the most celebrated wine in the Veneto region, which is where Verona is located. And risotto is a staple of northern Italy. So you're not going to get these local dishes in places in touristy areas. So my advice is enjoy a glass of wine or a coffee in restaurants and cafes in very touristy or historic areas. You can enjoy the scenery, take it all in, but don't eat a meal at these kinds of establishments. Instead, eat a few blocks away where real Italians eat and where you'll get to experience local dishes and local products. You'll get a higher quality meal, and on average, you'll pay less than you would have at restaurants in famous piazzas or near famous landmarks. A rule of thumb I like to suggest is eat where you see Italians eating, which means you might have to look a little bit further, but that's okay. It'll be worth it. Number 2, do be careful where you eat pizza. You might be surprised by this statement and be thinking, wait a minute, Italy is the home of pizza. Isn't all pizza delicious in Italy? Well, my answer to that is yes, Italy is the birthplace of pizza, but it is possible to get a really bad pizza in Italy. In fact, it's not only possible to eat bad pizza, but it's also possible to be served frozen pizza. Let me explain. As I just mentioned in tip number 1, there are restaurants that cater to tourists, and then some of these places, they have no problem serving frozen pizza. Of course, they don't indicate that on the menu that it's frozen, but they assume that a non-Italian can't possibly know the difference. So my advice is to eat pizza in a pizzeria, a place that specializes in pizza, where there is a pizzaiolo. That's a guy or girl that is dedicated to making the pizza, right? Tossing it up in the air, that kind of thing. Or if you're in a restaurant and they have pizza on the menu, look around to see if you see a pizza oven, right? You need a pizza oven to cook pizza. So that's an important element to look for. Or you can simply ask the waiter if you're not sure. So beware before you eat pizza. That being said, there are oodles and oodles of wonderful pizzerias in Italy around every corner. You won't have a hard time finding a place that has a delicious, light, and airy pizza. You just need to be careful in touristy areas. Now, to help you find the perfect pizza, I'm putting in the description a link to an article by Cucina Italiana, which is one of Italy's premier food magazine. Now, this list has the 50 top pizzerias in Italy. It's a very prestigious honor. Now, the article's in Italian. You can Google Translate it if you actually want to read the article, but the list is very useful. So the list just names, obviously, the name of the pizzeria and the location. So if you're traveling to Italy, have a peek at this list and see if one of these pizzerias is in the area where you'll be traveling to. Okay, on to the next tip. My third tip is don't eat at restaurants that have big pictures of the food or that offer a tourist menu, or that have someone standing out in front of the restaurant begging you to come in. You'll find these kind of restaurants in busy tourist areas, and again, these places cater to tourists. As I've already mentioned, you'll get a subpar meal and usually pay more. Choose restaurants that are off the beaten path where Italians are eating, like I said in the previous tips. One website that will help you find quality restaurants is the Michelin Guide. People often think that only expensive and famous restaurants are listed on the Michelin Guide, but that's not the case. You can search by budget and type of food, and of course, location. It's a great tool to use while you're in Italy, and I think it's better than using Google Reviews or TripAdvisor. I think you get a more accurate picture of a restaurant and reviews that are done by professionals. So I'll put the link in the show notes for you. Tip number 4, do expect to pay for water. This comes as a bit of a shock to some of you, but in Italy, you're not offered a free glass of water. You're asked as you sit down if you would like water, but the water is always bottled and it's not free. The server will ask you if you would like naturale, which is still water, or frizzante or gasata, which these terms both mean sparkling water. So you have a choice between still and sparkling water, and you get to pay for it. Tip number 5, don't expect invasive service when eating at a restaurant. In general, you're left to enjoy your meal, and you're not bombarded with questions like, is everything tasting okay? Can I get you anything else? Now, that's because there's a different mentality in Italy, and I would say most of Europe, of letting the customer enjoy their meal without interrupting them every 5 minutes. I think it's worth mentioning that you shouldn't mistake this for bad service because the service didn't meet your cultural expectations. Now, I come from the US where consumers are used to being waited on hand and foot. And in the US, attentive service at a restaurant is the norm. But in Italy, it's not. They see over attentiveness as intrusive and even rude. So if you need something, make eye contact with your server, raise your hand, be patient. As your plates are cleared, you will be asked if you want dessert and or coffee, which is typical in Italy to have coffee after a meal, and by coffee I mean espresso. And even in the evenings, Italians will drink espresso after a meal. Number 6, don't expect ice in your drink. In Italy, water and soft drinks are served without ice, even in the summertime. You may order something to drink and it may be chilled, like chilled water or chilled Coke, but it'll be served without ice. This is because Italians are very conscious of what helps digestion. And in their thinking, a drink that is too cold hinders your digestion. But of course, if you really want ice in your drink on a hot day, you can of course ask, and most are just happy to comply. It's not a problem. Number 7, don't order a cappuccino after noon. Well, Italians do not drink cappuccino or any kind of coffee that has milk in it after meals or past noon. It's just the way things are in Italy. They think it's really strange. This gets back to their views on digestion. So they think it's okay in the morning with your breakfast, but strange after a meal or in the afternoon. Now, what will happen if you order a cappuccino after noon or after dinner? You won't turn into a pumpkin, I promise. Nothing happens. You might get like a disapproving look or at worst a snarky comment. And if you're okay with that, then you go right ahead and order your cappuccino. So I guess this don't is a suggestion, not exactly a command. So there you have it. Number 8, don't expect the bill to be brought to you after your meal. In the US, it's customary for the waiter to bring your bill to you after you're done with your meal. Most places in Italy don't do that. The exception might be restaurants in touristy areas which have adopted this custom. But in Italy, when you're done with your meal, you get up, you look for the cash register. There might be a table number you were sitting at, but in most cases, they seem to know what you ordered, and there's no need to wait for the bill. You can just get up when you're ready and not have to wait for it to be delivered to you. Number 9 is don't tip. Okay, it's not necessary. In my last episode, I explained how tipping works in Italy. To sum it up, you'll be charged a cover fee called a coperto for each person. This covers the cost of the staff, and this fee is added to your total bill. There's no need to tip, and it's not a custom in Italy. Of course, if you received great service and you do want to tip, feel free to do so. If you want to know more details about tipping and how it works, have a listen to my last episode. Number 10, do try local dishes. Friends, every city in Italy has its own local cuisine. Italian food is not limited to pizza, lasagna, and all the well-known dishes that we typically hear of. I kid you not, Almost every town has its own cheese or its own wine, or even its own pasta dish, a pastry, something that is a specialty in that area. The food and the wine variety is truly staggering. So be brave and try new things, explore what's available and what's local. If you're not sure, ask your waiter about local dishes for suggestions. Ask your Airbnb host if you're staying in an Airbnb. Do a little research. Whatever you do, be sure to explore and experience the local flavors of Italy. They're from north to south of the peninsula. It is so diverse and so unique and so rich that if you're making the effort to travel to Italy, it's wise to just take it all in a culinary way as well. So those are my 10 do's and don'ts of dining in Italy. Let's review them. Okay, so number 1, don't go to restaurants that are in the heart of touristy areas. Number 2, do be careful where you eat pizza. Eat pizza in a pizzeria or a restaurant that has a pizza oven. Number 3, don't eat at restaurants that have big pictures of food or that offer a tourist menu or have someone standing in front of the restaurant begging you to come in. Number 4, do expect to pay for water. Number 5, don't expect invasive service. Number 6, don't expect ice in your drink. Number 7, don't order a cappuccino after noon or after a meal. This number 7 is more of a suggestion, not a firm don't. Number 8, don't expect the bill to be brought to you after your meal. Number 9, don't tip. It's not necessary. And number 10, do try local dishes. I really hope this list has been helpful and educational for those of you who are maybe visiting Italy for the first time. And I really hope it helps your dining experience while you're visiting Italy. As always, if it has been helpful, please subscribe, rate the show, share it with your travel buddies. I thank you for your time. Thank you so much. And I wish you a buon viaggio. Ciao.